Hi, this is Grandin Gill from the University of South Florida, and this is the sixth segment in my series on the Doctor of Business Administration / Executive Doctoral degree. And in this particular segment, I'm going to focus on a question that I've been asked by a number of potential applicants to our program since it was informally announced, which is whether you should be getting a DBA or a PhD. And so I'm just going to talk about a number of different criteria. I've spoken about some of these in the earlier segments and just give you a sense as to whether I think the DBA or the PhD is the best fit. Um, Now, the first item to talk about is the biggie. You want a career as a full-time tenured academic and researcher. What I would emphasize here is that the DBA is very unlikely to fit that criteria. If it does, it is going to be based upon your professional experience much more than the degree itself. The degree would be a necessary but far from sufficient condition for that type of position. Now, the PhD degree is a possible fit. It's a good fit when you come from an absolute top tier school, but tenured professorships are an extremely desirable position in the eyes of many. And right now, the only schools that get their graduates hired on a relatively frequent basis are those in the top tier. If you go to a mid-tier or a lower tier school and get a PhD, you may still find a job, but it won't be at a research school. It will be at a school that's more focused at teaching. And that might be a lot more fun. That may be what you want, but you should set your expectations accordingly. Now, the next question is, do you want to work while you're getting the degree? Well, here there's no question. The DBA degrees that have been introduced in the last 20 years are a good fit with that. They're not only a good fit, but they more or less insist that you work while you're getting the degree. For most PhD programs in business, on the other hand, it's a very bad fit because most of these programs require full-time students. Now, this is different in other fields. In education, for example, they encourage part-time PhD students. But in business, especially if you're interested in getting a tenured type of position, you're going to have to go full-time into the program. The next criteria we'll look at is you want to develop research skills that are slanted towards improving practice. Here, I would say the DBA degree is a very good fit. Sadly, I believe the PhD is more of a weak fit. In the PhD, the focus is on the literature. When you're trying to decide what to research, what you're looking for is areas that have not been covered in the research literature. Well, quite candidly, the research literature does not have an awful lot of impact on practice. So there's very, very little guarantee that any discovery that you make that gets published in an academic journal is going to see the light of day in practice. Whereas the DBA programs are specifically oriented towards teaching you research skills that you can apply to the job. Now, by the same token, if your goal is to develop research skills that are slanted towards publication, the PhD is going to be a pretty good fit because that's really what you're focused on. The DBA, well, it depends is probably the best way of describing it. If you're interested in publishing a trade book in business, for example, then the DBA might be a very appropriate degree. In fact, the type of writing that you do for a trade book is very different from the type of writing that you do for academics because when you write for academics, you're absolutely concerned with precision and rigor and citations, whereas when you're writing a book for managers to read, you actually want something that does not sap their will to live, and you want to make it interesting. And frankly, making your research interesting is not a huge criteria for academic publication. But on the whole, the emphasis of the DBA degree is not publication, and you should be aware of that. Now, you want to learn more about operating a business. Well, I would say that the DBA degree is a weak fit because really the DBA degree is about teaching you research skills. It's not teaching you about operating a business. In fact, if I were going to choose a group of individuals who I would not want telling me how to operate my business, it would probably be business faculty. On the other hand, if I wanted a group of individuals who could help me understand my business so that I could operate it better, then business faculty would probably be a better choice. Uh, as far as operating a business, a PhD is an absolutely terrible fit. Not only is their focus the academic literature, but they also tend to get very specialized on particular functions. And anyone who's operated a business knows that business problems do not come in a single function. And therefore, when you're trained to do your research on a functional basis or on very, very narrow problems, chances are it's not going to be that useful in day-to-day practical situations. Another important criteria is, do you want a high probability of getting out in a reasonable length of time? Now, the DBA experience has been very good in that regard. Most of these programs are about 3 years long, and they get 80 to 90% of the people who started through in that time period. And the reason has to do with the cohort and the structure that's introduced in the program. PhD programs are nowhere near as good. Now, at strong business schools, you probably get reasonably high percentages, but if you talk about schools that have mid-tier schools that offer PhD programs, 50% is probably the best you can hope for in terms of graduation, and almost nobody graduates on time. When I did my doctorate at Harvard, I was told that I should target 3 years. Well, it actually took me 5 years, and even then it was by the skin of my teeth. Nowadays, I'm told that a lot of doctoral students are spending 6 years so that they can have publications available for them in order to get their first job after they get their PhD. Well, you won't find that in a DBA program. They want to get you out in a specified period of time, and everybody understands that. Another criteria that may be important is, how comfortable you are with math and statistics. If you are uncomfortable with math and statistics, you want to look at whatever program you go into carefully. Some of the DBA and executive doctoral programs do not emphasize math and statistics, and you can get by without calculus and without extensive multivariate statistics. Some of them demand that you understand that stuff. When we talk about PhD programs, however, almost universally you're expected to understand that, because a lot of the research literature is written with a lot of mathematics in it, and if you can't understand the mathematics, or at least get a sort of sense of what's going on, you will never be able to understand the research literature or review it or do any of the other activities that academics are expected to do at a research institution. Finally, are you worried about money? Now, if you're worried about money, then the DBA is a weak fit. Most of these programs are reasonably expensive. The 3-year cost is between $75,000 and $150,000, depending upon the program. The PhD program, on the other hand, is a good short-term fit because usually your tuition is waived and you get some sort of stipend. Depending on the program, it could be as low as $20,000 or as high as $50,000 a year. But from a long-term perspective and an ROI perspective, the PhD is a terrible decision. You're going to take 3 to 5 years of your life away from your executive level experience, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars cost there, and then you'll be taking a job which is substantially lower in pay than a job at a comparable level in business. When I go back to my Harvard Business School reunions and look at my MBA class median earnings, which unfortunately I have to do because I am usually the individual who compiles them and gives a presentation to the reunion class about them, I am rarely making more than a third of the class median. Now, frankly, a third of the class median is fine if your tastes are not extravagant because a lot of these folks 20, 30 years out of their MBA program are making a lot of money. But uh, if you're in it for the money, frankly, a doctorate is probably not the best way to go. There are a lot easier ways to make money. So unless you've got a passion for a doctoral degree, steer clear of it.